Hey guys, I hope you're fine. My name is Nosi. I live and work in England. I'd like to share a story where my younger sister's arm was broken by a relative. When domestic abuse is done, but not by your mother, not by your father, but by your father's relatives. So, my mother got married, and the year she got married, it was the year when she was already pregnant with me. She had already had my sisters. So I'm the third born, but she was already pregnant, and it's the abuse of women to other women that my mother suffered, because her in-laws have beaten her up, her in-laws have insulted her, her in-laws have ill-treated her in all ways. My mother came from a family with boundaries, with rules, with a mother and the father, and she was raised very well. Then she came to a toxic family. That family was toxic from the day she came in as my father's wife. She was a customary wife. She was married in a customary marriage. I talk a lot about cultures, customary marriage, customary laws and traditions. I write about them. I'm against marriages of children in the name of culture. Because they experience abuse, because they experience physical abuse, rape, and harm, and they are prevented from accessing the economy themselves or contributing to the labor force. Now let's talk about my story and how I will tell these stories one by one, but I would like to. I've been reflecting or thinking about how my sister was. Her arm was broken by my father's relative because she only laughed at a dog's vomiters. Can you believe that kind of abuse? Really, guys. So this is what happened. We were sitting in a rondavel at home. My mother was not accepted. My mother has gone through all forms of abuse. All my father's brothers have chased my mother with a weapon, either a knife or an axe. My father's sisters have beaten my mother after insulting her. My father's brothers now were joined by their wives in, I guess my mother was a doormat to them. I don't believe this. How all people can go after you and abuse you. Even their wives who will join. They had, I think it is a spiritual warfare. I guess it's a spiritual warfare. So in this story, let me focus on this one, because I will break these stories a lot and I will lose focus if I tell you all of them. But as my mother was pregnant with me, they had me. There was a day where I used to be overweight. So I struggled to walk. You know, when a child is overweight, I was overweight and also lazy, I guess. So they would force me to walk and pull me, and up until they hurt me. So one day, in order to hurt my mother, they put me in a cart. You know, the rural carts, inwelo, in my language. They put me there and they hurt me. They didn't even tell my mother. So when my mother was attempting to bath me at night, she realized that I'm hurt in the side of the ribs, and it's serious. I listened to my mother telling these stories when I was young, and I gathered them, and I don't believe that people could treat other people the way they have treated her. But I've seen God fighting for her, and God will still fight for her to those who lived life to persecute her. My mother was a praying woman. She would keep quiet. She would take it. It's still difficult to even talk about it, by the way. Now, let's go back to the story. This time around, my father's brother had already had a wife. I've recorded this in one of my books. And in one of the books, I also told the story of how they would cook food in front of us. My mother is in hospital. She has been hurt. They would cook nice food in front of us and not give us. And we would look and we will be hungry, and we will look at them whenever they eat like this. From a young age, I never wanted anything from them, even their food. From a young age, they will be lying if they say, I've even eaten their food. So this day, I stole a fat cook because my younger siblings were looking as they eat, and I wanted to share it towards my siblings. One of the paternal aunts found it and took it back. Can you believe that? That's the hate they had. It's spiritual. Now let's cut the story and talk about this one, because before I lose focus, because they have done a lot. And the only way I dealt with them is to distance myself from them and not take them as my family, because they've never been my family. So my mother was abused by my father's sisters, my father's brothers, my father's brothers' wives, and those girls and boys who were supposed to be my cousins. They are children. They abused my mother. They've insulted her. So my mother was the doormat for everybody. I don't know how she let it happen for a long time, because it was stopped by us when we grew up. So the only way we stopped it was because I lacked knowledge. I beat one of them. But even then, it was self-defense. She came to beat me in my home. She said she's coming to beat me because I'm proud. Then all the anger came back and I beat her up. So we've stopped it. And even now they think they can get away with it. It doesn't come into their minds that we are grown-ups and we are not my mother. We're not going to keep quiet. We're not their doormats. And then now let me talk about this day when my sister's arm was broken. So we're sitting in this rondavel, and there was this dog that belonged to my father's brother. So this dog vomited. So my younger sister was 6 years old. Can you believe if you can hurt a 6-year-old over dog's vomiters, if you can be that kind of an abuser? So my sister was 6 years old, so that this dog vomited and she laughed. Do you know what my father's brother did? He stood up. He held her. He lifted her like this, and he dropped her like that. And my sister cried hysterically with a broken arm. And for me, that was the one abuse, hate, and I don't believe someone who has children can do that to someone else's children who hasn't done anything to you. And today, they act like we're not supposed to talk about those things. Not me. Not me. I will be home. If you have a problem with me sharing my story, my truth, let's meet. I will be there. You are not going to abuse me, my mother. You're not going to abuse my father, my mother, my siblings, and then abuse me and get away with it. And my sister screamed hysterically, ran like a mad child, and we looked and we were scared. My mother didn't even have money to take my sister to hospital. My mother kept quiet and she took it. And I guess she borrowed money and she took my sister to hospital. She was just a child. And who does that to a child? I grew up seeing those things. I grew up experiencing that hurt. And they never stopped. They've done a lot of things to us. And the last straw was that when I got educated, because I guess they never believed that I would be educated out of all the poverty we suffered. So I educated myself. They started now to spread rumors that I'm proud, and ever since I got educated, at home we change, we don't greet them. Are they our gods that we have to greet them? And that's a lie. My mother was the most humble person who wanted peace, and may her soul rest in peace. She still called them, tried to have peace with them. And I used to be cross with my mother and say, Mom, this is not to do good. This is not righteousness, because you cannot force yourself to people that hate you. They changed it now to say my mother was a witch. We are all graduates at home, and my father's brother's children are not graduates because my mother is bewitching them. So me, I answered, you know me, I don't care. Me, I answered, but it's just that they were not saying this to me, because if my mother's witchcraft makes her children to be educated, it's good. Why doesn't she go get it? With me, I'm like that. I'll never deny any label you say it. I would say, oh, you say I'm like that? Cool. You know, so it's working out for me. Why don't you take it? So, do you know that up until when my parents died, they never set foot to the funeral? It started now with the war over witchcraft. My mother is a witch. We changed. I got educated, and I don't greet them. I'm cutting this story short. There's a lot that they have done. My sister's was mended. I remember my older sister, who did not live with us, came home and saw my sister having an arm like this, and then with a bandage, and asked what happened. And I think I told her that my father's brother threw her in the air to break her arm. She cried quietly. All of us know how to be abused by my mother's in-laws, and we bled differently. And what I hated the most is when they try it when we are older. They will never do it now that we are older. There's law, there's everything, and for me, it seems as if God doesn't deal with them properly, because I know at the right time He will deal with them. My mother's tears will never go down. It is the scars that the family hatred leave you with. It is the scars that the family hate leaves you with. And some of us come from the kinds of families that are that toxic. Their names are mentioned in how one of my brothers got addicted with drugs. And even today, they are trying to fight us. But they're not going to win, because there is a God in heaven. And the God in heaven fights those who fight the people who haven't done anything to them. You know, my father used to go to them and beg them and say, what have I done to you? I apologize. if I've done anything, because they ended up hating the whole family. And up until today, I think this is a spiritual war that is known in heaven, but God will intervene one day. You know, one person said when I told her about this family war that doesn't end, he said, you know, families fight, but I think your family is in extremes. I've never heard these things happening that you talk about. A lot has happened, man. Kuningi, yes. But guys, let me advise you again, because I know there is a family that is having problems like these ones. If it happens, if it was my sister was my child, I wouldn't be like my parents. Go to the police station, open a case against them. That's a child abuse. That's domestic violence. And it happened many years ago. I can't do it now. If you can count the things they have done to us, you can destroy them in court. Because they've done lots of physical abuse to my mother, chasing her with axes, breaking my sister's arm, doing this, threatening us. And the question that I have is, what have we done to them? They don't have an answer. They don't know. They are just mean people. They are just cruel people who think it's normal to abuse people who haven't done anything to them. That is why I'm committed in anything that restores family, because someone wanted to destroy my family no matter what. We still stand because there is a God in heaven. We still stand because God is for us all. We still stand because God says in the Bible, He alone knows the plans He has for us, plans not to harm us, but to prosper us. Someone else somewhere wanted to destroy us, but the God in heaven stopped it. They are still conniving even just now. They act like they don't care about us. They act like we mean nothing to them. With me, they've always meant nothing to me. People would ask me if I know them. I would say, no, I don't know them. The last straw was when one of their sons, or one of my brother's father's sons, beat my sister in a funeral. That was it. He just clapped my sister, who hasn't done nothing to him. That was it. It ended up in a fight. We fought physically. I'm not proud of that fight, but it was time that we stopped them, because I think they had gone too far. It goes back to what I say, that when people want to destroy you, they try everything. With my mom, the funniest part is everybody has abused her physically, emotionally, and psychologically. Women in that family abused her. Men in that family abused her. Their wives in that family abused her, and their children abused her. When my mother was crippled by rheumatoid arthritis, they wouldn't even greet her. They would say she's cursed by the ancestors. I hope they won't be sick. And my mother has passed on now. It's been more than 4 years, 2019, 2021, 22, 23, 24. We are going to the 5th year since my mother passed on. I hope they are not bewitched, because they were telling everybody that my mother was bewitching them. And I don't even know why my mother would bewitch them, because they don't have anything that we need. Their souls are empty. You know, when you are poor in your soul, that's a serious issue. When your soul is empty, when your soul can't think for other people, when your soul thinks you are the only person who's alive in this earth, and you can't be considerate of other people. Guys, I thought of this story today, and I thought, let me share it. And Inbox me if you want help and you go through this, especially in an African culture, because there's a lot of abuse of the people who are married by their in-laws. I know that when I say this, in our case, my brother died because of his wife, and his wife is surrounded by my mother's in-laws, the extended family, because they are using her now as a weapon to destroy us, and we are labeled as the bad in-laws, which is not true. We've loved that woman. We've made her our own because of the history of my mother. I've given her all my clothes. She even stole my clothes. She stole from home. It's just that the choice of the woman that my brother took was a different person, was not a wife material. She didn't come to marry, but she came to destroy. Anyway, guys, please like, share, and comment. And if you need help in this, I can give you counseling and link you with resources. I'm a therapist by profession. Take care. I love you. Bye.